All right, guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're doing the last drivetrain service on my BMW X7. I've already posted videos on how to do the front diff, the rear diff, and the transfer case service. So naturally, the last thing we're going to do is the transmission service as well. This is really important for all of our cars, especially if you've got an XHP transmission tune like I do. It's a good thing to stay on top of your maintenance, and ZF does recommend doing this every 60 to 100,000 miles. So we're going to go ahead and get under the car. I'll show you guys how it's done. As always, I'll have links in the video description to all of the tools and parts that I'm using to complete this service. And yeah, let's go ahead and do this. So hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing you want to do is jack up the car on all four corners so that it is completely level with the ground. The reason is because the driveline components vary. Some of them have a drain plug, some of them don't. So if it does have a drain plug, the idea is you drain it and then fill through the fill hole. Or if it doesn't have a drain plug, you suck out the old fluid from the fill hole, then pump in fresh fluid to replace it. There are no level indicators on any of these driveline components. So if you don't have the car completely level, then you potentially will overfill it or underfill it. You know, basically that hole won't be at the right point, so you won't be able to get the fluid filled correctly. So that's why it's critical to make sure the car is level. If you don't have a lift, like I don't have one, then just make sure your jack stands are extended the same amount on all four corners, and you should be good to go. Now up front, it's pretty easy to jack up. You'll see a center mounting jack point that you can jack up the front and get both front wheels up in the air. In the rear, it's a little bit more tricky. I use the rear differential, and when you jack that up, just make sure your jack isn't touching the actual differential case cover, and you won't have any issues. So jack it up from the base of the differential, and again, that'll jack up the entire rear, and you can get it on jack stands like this. So once you've got enough space under the car, we are ready to get under and do the rest of the service. Now, of course, before you jack up your car, if it does have air suspension, make sure you disable that from inside of the car. The process is super easy. You go into the dash where it has the little indicator for the ride height of the vehicle, and you're going to hold the button either up or down for 7 seconds and then let it go. If you don't release it after 7 seconds, it won't work. It won't automatically turn off after 7 seconds. You have to let go of the button, and you should see the little green line go away, and that way you know that the air suspension is disabled, and that will allow you to jack it up in the air without creating any errors with the ride level system or anything like that. So thankfully, the transmission has both a drain and a fill plug, so it's time to drain the old oil. Push your catch pan underneath the transmission, and we're going to double check and make sure that we can remove the fill plug before we drain the old oil. That way, if it gets stripped out or worse, you have any issues, at least you figure that out while oil is still in the case, and you can drive the car if you need to get it fixed. So the fill plug is an 8mm Allen. Squeeze it in this area and just kind of crack it loose to make sure it can come off. I used a long box wrench for a little bit more leverage because a big Allen key won't fit in this tight of a space. So basically you need a stubby Allen with a super long arm in order to loosen this plug. The drain plug itself is even bigger. It's a 10mm Allen. It feels a bit weird when you're opening it because it kind of skips and almost makes like a cracking or popping sound while you're loosening it. But as long as the whole plug is turning, then you're doing the right thing. Eventually you see it starts to spin freely, and then it'll just come off. Just be ready for a mess because oil leaks out from the entire perimeter of the plug as you're loosening it, so you can see it's pretty much getting everywhere. Although I'll say this is the perfect time to watch the beauty of the transmission oil drain as it does its synchronized dance. So yeah, we should expect to see that on Broadway next spring. Anyway, next you're going to remove the transmission pan itself, reinstall the drain plug to minimize the mess that you're going to make, and then you're going to use a T40 Torx bit to remove all of the screws on the pan. There are 13 screws in total, and you just work your way around the perimeter to remove all of them. Keep in mind there is going to still be some oil in the pan, so I think it helps if you start on one side and then work your way over to the other. I started at the rear and then worked my way to the front. So that way when all the screws are removed, you can let the pan lean and drain all the old oil out on one side so that it comes out in a more controlled manner versus it just getting everywhere. Then you're going to grab your new pan and your new screws. Make sure you put some oil on the transmission O-ring right here to help it slide on smoothly without getting damaged, and then reseat it onto the transmission. You'll need to push up with a little bit of force to get it seated, but it should pop into place, and you'll know when it's all the way on because you'll kind of feel it free up. I like to go ahead and start a couple screws to first hold the pan on more easily. Then you can push it all the way up and you'll hear it pop into place. There is a torque sequence. Here's what it looks like. I recommend following it so that you make sure the pan is torqued down flat and you don't pinch anything or shift any part of the gasket or anything like that. You really don't want to find out after it's all said and done that you have a leak, because that would mean having to redo this entire job. But yeah, the torque spec is down in the description as well for your reference. And just to double check, make sure that the drain plug is tight as well. Mine was slightly loose, so I don't know that it would have actually leaked, but it's a good idea to just tighten it before you start filling the trans. So now move your catch pan under the fill plug, because the last step is literally to fill the transmission until it's overflowing. Since there's no level sensor, the level of the fill hole is what determines if the trans is full. So go ahead and remove the fill plug. And for the trans, I'm going to use the ZF branded fluid instead of the OEM fluid. It works well in my experience, and since this is a ZF transmission, I have a lot of faith in it. This is also the same fluid extractor that I used for my front diff, my rear diff, and my transfer case. So I'll also have that linked in the video description in case you want to use the same tool. It's great, it works with everything, and here you can see I just easily suck out the fluid from the bottle. And then we're going to get back under the car and pump it into the transmission. I do recommend pumping it in slowly just to make sure that it goes into the trans. When we had the pan off, you saw all the internals and everything. So just consider that you don't want to squirt it really hard into a wall of components that could potentially make the fluid push back out prematurely. So this is going to get a little bit tedious. Just be patient, especially if you have the 200cc extractor like mine. You'll literally be going up and down almost 20 times to get this full. Also, you can see my exhaust is slowly but surely getting completely covered in residue. Don't be overly careless, obviously, but don't worry too much about it either, because when you start up the car, it'll just burn off the exhaust. I did end up getting about 3.5 liters in before the transmission fluid was consistently coming out of the fill hole in a small stream, and that is your sign when the transmission is full. Well, almost full. You're going to go ahead and hand tighten the new fill plug, but the last step, while it does sound sketchy, is to actually do the fill procedure with the car running. This makes sure that the torque converter is full, and it allows you to go through the gears and fill up all of the solenoids and everything in the transmission's internal components. So if you're in the garage, go ahead and open the garage door and start the car. Loosen the fill plug and begin pumping in more transmission fluid. You can see I'm kind of rushing to try and finish this up before the exhaust gets too hot. But the good news is I was able to get in another 2 liters, so about 5.5 liters total out of the 7-liter capacity. Like the other drivetrain services, it's almost impossible to drain out everything, but over time, as you keep up with your maintenance, it will completely change out all the oil. So don't get too hung up on it. Just keep doing it, like I said, every 60K or so, and you should be good to go. Now, there is an ISTA service function to go through all of this, but I did it, and all it really does is walk you through this process and make sure that the transmission is up to temp for the final fill. So make sure you get in the car, put on the parking brake, and then go through the different transmission positions to make sure everything is full. Shift the car into reverse for 10 seconds, put it into park for 10 seconds, go into drive for 10 seconds, then shift over to manual shifting and go from first gear to second for 10 seconds, then go back to first gear. And again, you're just kind of going through these different settings to make sure that all of the solenoids are filling up and everything is getting completely full in the transmission. Now, with all of this going on, keep in mind you are supposed to begin filling the trans when temps are between 30 and 40 degrees Celsius, and you should complete filling the trans when it is between 40 and 50 degrees Celsius. If you don't have ISTA, you can use Bimmerlink or the MHD tuning app to monitor your transmission temp to make sure that it's above 40 degrees Celsius before you finish up the job. I did have to wait a few minutes for the trans to get all the way up to 40 degrees Celsius before sealing it back up, just to make sure that nothing indicated I needed to add more transmission oil. You know, if it wasn't really dripping out anymore, or I wasn't seeing that small stream of fluid coming out of the fill hole, then that would indicate I still need to add more transmission oil. But there was still a steady stream spilling out, so I just reinstalled the fill plug, and then you can torque it to spec. Again, I will have the spec listed in the video description, and then wipe the pan clean up the mess, and reinstall the under trays before lowering the car back on the ground. And that's how the job is done. So pretty straightforward, as you can see. Some people do like to drive the car around a little bit more so they can actually shift it through all 8 gears. The car doesn't let you do that while it's standing still. But if you go and do a little bit of city driving and then bring it back home, you can get it back up in the air, get it between that 40 to 50 degrees Celsius range, and double check that it's still completely full. But keep in mind, just doing first and second gear is what's in the BMW manual. It's what they would do at the dealership, and it's been more than adequate in my experience. So not necessarily good or bad, you know, it's kind of just personal preference if you want to go the extra steps to do that as well. But yeah, I'm very happy to say that I've completed all the drivetrain services on my X7 now. And at this point, I just plan on doing it every 60K. So it's 60,000 miles, 120,000 miles, 180,000 miles. Hopefully I can enjoy it for that long, and I'll just continue doing the services. I think the only one I might do more often is the transfer case, since that seems to be a little bit more sensitive, but we'll address that again when we need to. So of course you can expect more coming soon. The X7 again is my kind of family hauler, my workhorse, my tow vehicle. So I want to do everything I can to make it last as long. Let me know if there's any other maintenance that you guys would like to see, if you're curious about anything specific on these cars, and I can definitely try to make more videos about that in the future. So for now, I think that's it for this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.